Welcome back, everybody, to the Derby City Fandom podcast. My name is Kenny, joined by my friends here to talk about Antman Quantumania.
He said friends. I could swear he was going somewhere else with that.
No,
Like friends.
not
just
the
friends.
shows.
Just friends.
Just friends that are
Colleagues.
Colleagues. That's a professional way to say it.
Mutual business partners.
Come on. Now that's just weird.
All right. Ant-Man. Woo.
and the Wasp. Don't forget about the Wasp.
Yeah, that was kind of... The title was kind of misleading. Didn't you guys think she played a very supporting role? I don't know.
It depends on which Wasp you're talking about, because the original Wasp
Hold on.
Anyways.
Everybody pause. That is definitely going to be brought up, and I love your enthusiasm, Jake, but let's start at the beginning and make our way down to our dislikes, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
There's not that many dislikes. I really like the movie.
All right. Well, Colin, as all things should start, how did you rate this film, and where did IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes put this?
Okay, IMDb got it at 6.5 out of 10. And then Rotten Tomatoes, a whopping 47%.
Oh, bullshit. Really?
Yep.
Is that like how's the Rotten Tomatoes work? Is that like a professional one? Or
It's similar to IMDb. It's just kind of more.
Or is it like an audience?
If you want to go for more of a professional, I would go more IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes is just another one of those.
It's another one, but kind of more fan
based.
Well, I guess, yeah, fan focused, I suppose.
Yeah, it's more fan focused, and the other one's more critic.
So the Marvel fans didn't care for the movie?
Not in particular, no.
Actually, that is pretty accurate.
Huh. Well, I guess that leads us to our first topic then. How would you guys rank it?
I think Colin's probably going to share a similar sentiment. Now, while I haven't seen too much of the film, been busy running around doing stuff for the podcast and doing other life stuff, but I think I would put it, at least from what I've seen, around like a 6.5 to a 7.5 in that kind of ballpark.
Nice. It's pretty good.
I think the film as a whole is watchable, but there's a lot of problems that once you kind of like realize it takes you out of the film.
Oh, I don't know. I'm interested to see that. There's one problem for me, but for
okay,
the most
we'll
part,
go with you next then.
For the most part, I thought it was really good. I'd probably put it as a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Colin?
Sure, I respect your all's opinion, but I would get more. I wouldn't give it a 5, any of the range of the 5. I would probably go with a 6 solid. 6.5 at most is pushing it for me, but I'll give it a 6.
It's still pretty good. I could have swore Colin was going to be the negative Nancy.
No. I mean, I like, with me being non-critical, I did enjoy the film. It was entertaining. A lot of the CGI and the aspect of getting to know what the quantum realm consisted of. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Everything was very mesmerizing and whatnot. And I'll just leave it there for the time being.
Yeah, so I want to follow up there is that you mentioned the CGI and the mesmerization of like the realm itself. That I think they did well. I think some of the CGI that they used on the characters this time around were not on the same level, and thus made the film a bit more disappointing in my book. So if we want to kind of circumvent our general method of review that we do is just kind of start with the beginning of the movie and work our way towards the back, I think we could just go straight into some of the nitpicks of it.
Yeah, so let's just start at the beginning and give a basic synopsis of the plot.
Or we can do that.
let's start from the beginning, go plot wise, and then scene by scene if you want of our likes and dislikes if you want, or whatever you want to do. I'm down.
Sure. We can start at the beginning then.
So in the beginning of the movie, basically, Paul Rudd comes in and he's just known for writing a book about the Avengers and how he's basically become famous for writing this book. And he's in the beginning doing a public reading in a library. And, you know, he's got a fan base and everybody's asking for an autograph of the book. And then we eventually just kind of segue into a family dinner and find out that, what's his daughter's name? Cassie. She ends up in prison for
political activism.
I forget what she went to prison for, stealing something or whatever. Anyway, so she's been to prison multiple times. And so during this family dinner, they find that out. And then she ends up telling her dad, Paul Rudd, that while everything was going on, she kind of found a way and built a device to basically
contact the quantum realm.
Basically. And so everybody's kind of like, yay, but at the same time, they're like, oh, well, this could be potentially dangerous. And so they end up going to find the device and getting up and running, and everybody's like, yay, but Janet is happy, but at the same time, very concerned and wants her to turn off the device immediately, and so she does. But then I guess the device worked and a signal was sent down to the quantum realm, and then one was sent back, and the device then sucks them into the quantum realm along with some ants.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, with they kind of made a big deal with the ants being sucked into the quantum realm, that the ants are somehow going to be involved into the plot of this film.
Right. That's the kind of general, I guess, foreshadowing they do is that, okay, the ants do get sucked into, which means that in theory that they're either going to be important or it's just a red herring.
All right, so going back to the beginning.
Sure.
There's two things that I genuinely really enjoyed about the movie. Was A, it starts out like this very comedic, and I think a lot of it is Paul Rudd's, accomplishments, because I really love Paul Rudd as an actor. But it just starts out very comedic and funny, and it's very upbeat. He's walking around. They have all these slide jokes and inside jokes from old movies. I think the coffee guy calls him Spider-Man, and little small details like that. So I thought the beginning was really fun and engaging and entertaining. And then to what Colin was just talking about, Cassie, she's building this device that talks to the quantum realm. So that's like the bread and butter of the plot, right? Them going to the quantum realm and messing all things up. So I thought the plot as well was really good. So at the very start, I thought it was funny and comedic and entertaining from the beginning all the way through the movie. And I thought it had a pretty good plot. So those are two reasons just within the first, you could say, 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the film that really sealed the deal for me.
Okay. Then, Colin, how would you summarize what happens next here?
Basically what happens next is, like I said, they were sucked into the quantum realm and they're kind of separated. Not kind of. They are, in fact, separated. So Paul Rudd and Hope are together, and then Hank and Janet. No. It's Paul Rudd and Cassie, or his daughter. They're together, and then Hope, Janet, and Hank Pym are in a different group
With Kang, right? Or at least, or
no, they're not. They're not
the
that,
rebel group first.
They're not. They're not at that point yet.
Yeah.
But So we'll start with Janet and her crew first. They kind of find their way to meet this group of individuals that basically are
Starting a rebellion.
pretty much they started a rebellion, and turns out that Janet can speak to them, but the other two do not understand what's going on. And then we kind of segue back over into Cassie and Paul Rudd's point of view, and they're basically taken over by some other anti-Kang people. And, they are basically forced to drink this liquid, or they call it the ooze.
Yeah.
The ooze. The
some of
Ivan
that.
ooze.
And Cassie drank it first, and Paul Rudd's character ends up being taken, and Scott Lang. I always forget his name. Anyway, so he also drinks the ooze, which basically enables them to understand the quantum realm language, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's basically forced to drink this ooze that comes from who I like to call Mr. Seven Holes.
Oh, God.
It started out with this creepy character who, you're not necessarily fond of in the beginning, and then throughout the movie you actually find this character quite humorous and probably
Actually a
one
good
of the
guy.
actually one of the better characters in the entire in the entire film. But so yeah, he drinks it, and so they start to figure out who is behind the quantum realm and why people started this uprising. And there's always a reason for it, and so Kang the Conqueror is actually the reason for it.
Yes.
And Darren Cross. You can't forget Darren Cross.
This is true.
This is true.
AKA M.O.D.O.K.
Yes.
But we'll go back to Janet and her crew. Basically, they find a way to meet with Bill Murray's character.
Yeah, that was another
Cameo.
I love that as well.
Just why though? Why was he in the film?
I think it was more of like,
One.
I agree with you. It was a random cameo.
It's just
but
like, oh, hey, Bill Murray.
yeah, I think I read somewhere that it was just kind of, obviously Bill Murray's.
Well, it should have
getting up there
been
in
like,
age.
oh, Paul Rudd just really wanted to work with Bill Murray at one point in his career, and it's just like,
You know what?
let me get you in.
I
think
can
it
see
was-
that.
I think it was Bill Murray's just getting older. He's going to retire. I think he just wanted to say that he was part of this whole Marvel saga. Is
Sure.
my understanding behind it. But I like
Possibly.
Bill Murray. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I was happy to see him.
But yeah, so eventually, we find out that Janet has a history or relationship, if you will,
Secret
With the
lover.
realm.
with the
lover.
realm. Obviously, she was down there 32 years, which is apparently a blink in the eye on the Earth side of things.
Yeah, never. Yeah, is that how they explained it? Did they ever explain like the time?
They do. I just don't remember what it is. 32 years. So I was like,
They give you like
So-
a rough approximation. It's like, oh, a year is like this amount of time down there.
well, hold on.
Right.
In the previous movie, not an Ant-Man movie, it was it Endgame? He's like, I was down there like 5 hours, but it was actually 5 years. So if they're going hour to year ratio, then I guess 32 hours would be 32 years. Does that make sense?
I think that's what it was, but I also want to say that it was 3 years later after the blip is when Endgame starts. I could be wrong. I'd have to go
Anyway.
back.
Yeah,
I
there's
digress.
A little confusion on the whole.
That's
Okay, but the amount of time has been established. We're just being forgetful. Okay.
Anyway, so Janet basically found Kang, and he basically got what's the word I'm looking for? He got kicked out.
He got exiled by his
Exiled.
other variants
Exactly, he got exiled, and so
for reasons not fully explained, just that they were afraid of Kang the Conqueror, or at least this variant of Kang the Conqueror.
yeah, and so she basically helps him rebuild his ship, I guess.
Yeah, the ship and the power core in particular.
Power core.
Yep. And so she feels really guilty after finding out his true identity and his real potential, or his true potential behind getting everything fixed. And so she kind of just bounces.
Uses the pin particle to enlarge the power core.
Yes, which also subsequently causes the problem that they're currently in.
Correct.
So
then Kang gets pissed off, takes over the quantum realm, becomes some dictator.
Yeah, it's like, Jake, I think you'd
Pretty
be
usual.
guilty if you accidentally made like a dictator because you accidentally tried to fill up like a gas tank effectively.
So one thing I do want to kind of point out, I was talking with somebody about this, and I kind of had this other point of view, but then this coworker of mine brought it up. This other point of view is we're kind of in agreement. It's a Tron/Star Wars kind of vibe, essentially.
Right,
I
like
definitely got a
whenever
Tron
they.
vibe. I would agree with the Tron comparison.
If you look at the army, if you look at the soldiers, they all have that blue face shield.
Yeah,
And I definitely got a Tron vibe from that.
Yeah, I could see it.
that's also going to be one of my nitpicks.
But then they do like an aerial shot of like all the soldiers, and that is very clone-esque, Star Wars-esque, if you will. Does that make sense?
So you saying that do you think they
Maybe they got inspiration from that. I don't know, but
quote unquote inspiration? You think that?
or maybe they freaking plagiarize. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they always say that great writers kind of steal from each other to a degree, and the same thing can be same with cinema, that everybody's going to end up sharing the same ideas eventually. It's just how do you remix it where they're legally distinct. I do like kind of like all of like the clockwork and mechanical, like just swerving of in and out and all the fancy dynamics that they have going on. Definitely inspired by other properties though, so I do agree with you all.
Yeah, I never thought about that, Colin. I definitely see the Tron vibe.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily Star Wars. I mean, I guess you could see like the armies lined up, but like I don't know, you see armies lined up everywhere. But I definitely see the Tron vibe.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting conversation. Where was I?
Just got done filling up the particle for him, explaining that story. I think we are kind of introduced properly to this time to M.O.D.O.K, who we find out is Darren Cross from the first film, correct?
Correct.
And how he became the mechanism, the mechanical organism designed only for killing.
But there's an F in there just saying.
Whichever. I may have...
M.O.D.O.K.
yeah, M.O.D.O.K. Not Murdoch, M.O.D.O.K.
M.O.D.O.K. Could be Murdoch.
Anyway,
No.
M.O.D.O.K.
No.
So, I thought it was kind of humorous and kind of corny the way that Murdoch was M.O.D.O.K.
Right, now I got it in your
was
head.
introduced.
He was my least favorite character of the whole movie.
So, if you look at images
look weird.
online, you see M.O.D.O.K. as this menacing mask, and it's kind of terrifying looking, but as soon as that shield comes up, it's this stretched out face of the character.
It just
and
didn't look good.
It looks
that is
terrible.
my nitpick. Probably my largest one for this film is that
That's not my largest one, but
M.O.D.O.K is, for me at least, this menacing like head. He's supposed to be like the self-proclaimed like smartest organism in the universe. He's not. But
Oh, the
yeah, like
comics.
the one that you see is that he has too much cheek. There's too much cheek. He's too friendly looking.
He's got a really big forehead.
It's just, yeah, they didn't do a good job on.
Yeah.
So you're saying Kenny in the comics, he's supposed to be like this
Intelligent being that everybody fears, and he has rockets and
Well, they dropped that too. Like I don't think he was that terrifying, and to me didn't come across as intelligent. He just came across as like this
100%.
floating baby head
Yep.
that was.
He's also kind of portrayed as a dweeb in the comics, at least in some of like the animations as well, where he doesn't really kind of understand how to interact with people anymore because he's too high and mighty on his own intelligence. But my big, I guess, design criticism is that the chair is not correct, but that can be stylized or whatever. His helmet looks fine when the face shield is down, but when it's up,
it's a
the
joke.
band that goes across his forehead needs to be larger. It needs to be thicker because you don't really see much of his forehead. And also most of his different variants, he has hair. Here he's just bald, which, whatever, you know.
Well, Cross is bald in the first one.
Yeah, I think that's just the casting.
And since we're talking about menacing, I think Cross in the first film was more menacing than his variant here.
So
I don't know, maybe they did it on purpose because they have like jokes and jabs at him. Like I think Scott Lang calls him like a baby or something.
Well, that's a reference to the comics too. Is like he's basically a baby because babies typically have heads that are disproportionately large to the rest of their body.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I
And
just
that's
assumed
why-
maybe they knew they did a shitty job on it, so they're like, well, let's just have fun.
Well,
with it.
that's kind of a callback to that. How Ant-Man and Iron Man kind of like make fun of him. They call him a man baby quite a lot. One of the, not to go too far down the M.O.D.O.K rabbit hole, but the reason why Darren Cross becomes M.O.D.O.K is that when he shrinks down disproportionately. So his head stays larger, but the rest of him shrinks down to like the regular size that he should have been. And that's then causes a genetic mutation that gets him stuck in that shape
Why that happened to him and not the others?
because his suit malfunctioned. It just does. Ant-Man kicks his ass. Hank Pym originally kicks his ass so hard that the suit basically breaks like mid-shrink.
Yep.
All right. Well, back to the film, though. So we have his interaction.
And so basically, we're introduced to Kang, and Paul Rudd is basically used to use his Ant-Man suit to get the was it the power core,
Power core. Yeah.
and use that to, essentially to his advantage and help Kang and bring that power core to him.
Yeah.
Well,
I think at that point he had threatened that he's going to kill like his entire family, or at least Cassie.
At least, kill
Yeah.
Cassie.
pretty much. And so he ends up doing it and finds himself meeting other variants, I guess,
Of himself, right?
of himself. And I kind of tend to agree. My favorite variant was the Baskin Robbins.
Baskin Robbins. Yes, employee of the century.
Yeah, I love that scene. Where he had all
It
his
was,
variants. and
it was
he was fighting
interesting.
against
And
himself, and then they all kind of aligned once they realized, oh, we're doing this for Cassie. Like, just watch them all kind of work together. I think they were like chanting that for Cassie. I
And
love
then
that whole scene.
they basically just trample each other to death,
yeah,
which is
It's kind of like
dumb, but
kind of have a
it's-
comedic aspect.
It kind of reminded me of like those typical zombie movies where they're freaking crawling all over each other to build this
Yeah.
giant wall. You kind of see that in the movie like World War Z and 28 Days Later and those kind of films. So that's the vibe I got when they build this giant mountain of Scott Lang's.
which is kind of absurd because they can just grow to that size regardless. But
Anyway,
I digress.
which does happen eventually. He does get, I guess, technically to human size in the quantum realm. Anyway, so in comes the Wasp, in comes Hope to help, and she meets her variants, I guess, and
She seemed like she had it down though. Like her variants were trailing her, right? Like her variants were just flying around with her. Like
I
she didn't
guess well,
struggle with it
she
as
just
Scott
kind of
did.
came in
Yeah.
because he was kind of confused about what was going on, but she kind of just came in and
yeah, she off screen grasped the concept and got her following.
yeah, and so basically they get the power core and they're debating whether to give it to Kang or not, and
The implications there, yeah.
then a huge thing occurs. Which,
Great description.
it's
Well, leads us to the end of the movie, right?
I mean,
pretty
it's-
much, yeah. The whole like
Which is the worst part. Well, I don't want to say the worst part, but it was
the
one
like
of the
quantum
least favorite parts.
quantum
for me.
level black hole thing that they end up.
There was a lot. There was a lot that took place at the ending of the movie. I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, man?
Well,
I don't-
because it's more so towards the ending of the film is where you get the spectacle of the film, where like most films have like a clear moment where you can tell this is where all the budget went into. This is the moment all of the budget went into.
yeah, I mean, he's basically taking the power core and he's building everything up and he's trying to take his armies with him.
Yep, all the special effects on all the
And then the
different things that going on.
I thought it looked fun. Like I thought visually it was fun to watch. Just
Did you just think that
The writing-
storyline wise, it was a lot going on all at once?
yeah. Well, I think there's part of the writing I didn't fully understand, like what the hell was going on, and there's part of it I was just like, really? That's the best you could do? I think visually it looked beautiful. Like it was entertaining and fun to watch, but there was some writing toward it all.
But
I'm
yeah,
sure we'll get to it in a couple minutes.
so naturally we do get that the Prim family, the Lang family,
him.
Pem, sorry, are
Prim. You've been watching
Don't-
too much Hunger Games, huh?
is that what that's from?
Yes,
Is that her name?
actually,
Prim? The sister? I don't know.
whatever.
I digress.
Whatever.
Yeah, sorry about that one then.
That was a
But
crazy segue.
Whatever, Murdoch.
Wow.
so
Wow.
yeah, from there we get the big team up, the defeat of Kang, and everybody basically living happy ever after.
No.
You guys agree with me?
But no,
Alright. My biggest
it is
pet
not that
peeve-
simple.
My biggest
Colin.
pet peeve in the movie
Jake.
is Kang being defeated.
Okay, so let's talk about this because that is actually one of
feel
my
like-
bigger pet peeves.
I
Go
feel
on.
like most people, that's probably why they dislike the movie so much. I don't know. I could be wrong. For the most part, I really loved the movie. I thought it was fun. It checked so many boxes for me. But going into the movie, I knew a little bit about Kang. But then, like, you hear and read all the stuff. It's like he's supposed to be this very menacing, badass character. But then he loses to Ant-Man. Like, I don't get that. And even, the middle part of the movie when he kind of takes Scott Lang and Cassie hostage, like, he shows off some of his powers then and there.
Yeah.
And like they were helpless compared to him. Like I get a little bit. I really enjoyed what they did with the ants. I thought that was clever and really cool. Kind of going back to your initial thoughts, seeing the ants go through. You know they're going to be playing a vital role. But even then, like it seemed like it should have been an unfair match, and Kang should have done a lot better. So I guess they're playing off. They just got lucky.
Yeah. That's part of it. So Kang's big deal is that aside from him being like across multiple timelines and whatnot, he doesn't have like powers per se. It's just that his tech might as well be magic. because
Kang's?
it's super futures tech.
He's pretty powerful. What do you mean?
Like all of his powers are a result of future technology and not like him
He could
being
control
like
time,
a Batman
right?
that like shoots lasers.
Sure.
But he has a machine that does that.
Oh, okay. And
That's
he
what I'm
didn't-
getting at.
and
Is
he
that
didn't
he
have- yeah, that's
himself, without anything on him, can't really do much. Then he's just normal guy from other reality. But when he has his full suit on, he can basically do whatever he wants, and that's I think a lot of people's expectations for kind of how they want the character to be introduced. That's what we're introduced to in the Loki series, is that
He who remains.
He who remains, just from He Who Remains. It's like, yeah, no, my other variants used the technology from our timelines to then go back in time to wreck shit. But because of how the quantum realm works and how he got powered down because he lost the power core that like did all of the different stuff, including, I guess, fuel his abilities for his suit. It does come off as being, it's like, yeah, no, Ant-Man by himself, even with like the other, like the Ant-Man family and the Wasp, like that should not have been like an even match at all.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to knock Ant-Man. I really like Ant-Man. There's something about having a superhero that's just an average Joe, normal guy, doesn't have all these special powers, and that's why he's very relatable to me. But just from a Marvel fan, when they beat Kang, and I'm sure he's not dead. I'm sure
Well,
obviously
that
he's coming
particular
back.
variant is.
Maybe, I don't know. But
Well, that's the thing. It's like post-credit scene, you see the variants all converging together, being like, hey, this particular Earth is a
616.
problem.
Yeah.
We need to deal with this.
So
I
before
just don't think Ant-Man, and even with crew, should. I don't know. I just feel like he shouldn't have been able.
It
to
needs
beat him.
more development.
So here's my take.
Let's hear your take.
I agree with what you all are saying. I do. So basically, they have this game of fisticuffs, right? And it looks like Scott Lang's getting his ass whooped, and he basically does get his ass whooped by Kang. And we're led to believe, in the Loki series when we're first introduced to Jonathan Majors
Yes.
as Kang, or as He Who Remains, he is this pretty powerful character. At least that's the impression that I get.
Yes.
Maybe not He Who Remains, but his other variants are pretty powerful, which I was like, okay, cool. Is this like a Thanos level threat, or like where are we on the spectrum of that? And so we're next introduced to Kang the Conqueror in this movie, and I'm kind of wanting more of like a Scott Lang getting his ass whooped more than he did, but sure, maybe some other side character comes in and helps him out, and then Kang ends up getting defeated, sure, which essentially is what happened because the ants come in with Hank Pym, and that whole thing happens.
And they do their bit.
But no, I agree with you. They made him look weaker than I was anticipating, and so therefore Scott Lang ends up getting away. Kang the Conqueror, that variant is defeated, and then we, happy ending, whatever, if you will, air quotes, get to the post-credits scene, and we're introduced to all the variants of Kang. Who are the variants? It's like a Mortis, and then
There's three main ones.
I wrote it down. So it's Ramatut, that he's the Pharaoh, Immortus, and Scarlet Centurion. Those are the three variants that you see in the post-credit scene. So Immortus, I believe, is the most powerful of all the variants.
I believe that's the case, yes. He's the one that has the most charisma and is able to kind of rein in all the other ones, if anything.
So how does He Who Remains he's from the Loki series, right?
Correct, yes. That's our first technical
he's just a
introduction
variant,
to the
so
character.
he's not the same as Kang the Conqueror.
Right,
No.
but he is self-proclaimed the peaceful variant of Kang. That I forget exactly how. It's been a minute since I've seen Loki. He is able to kind of control the timeline through the beast at the end of time, and just through other means, to keep all of his other variants kind of under wrap.
Yeah,
But
he
since
remains is basically he's behind everything of the TVA. Is that what it is?
TVA, yeah.
And so yeah, we're led to believe that there's more to it than that. And I was kind of let down with that particular variant, but I'm sure we'll get more.
Which one? He Who Remains?
Yeah.
I like
No.
Well,
No,
just Kang as a
That was
character.
let
King
down
the
King the
Conqueror,
Conqueror.
I was let down by.
Yes. So there's something that I kind of want to bring up.
Shoot.
Would we like Kang the Conqueror, or be kind of more excited for the character if he had the same sort of incremental build-up that
As
Thanos
Thanos?
was given?
Yes.
Maybe. Probably.
Probably, yes.
Okay, because I was in that boat. Because when we first see Thanos, you see legitimately 3 seconds of just like his silhouette turning and smirking
At the camera.
at the camera when they mention death,
Yes.
which that within itself is a fun nod because Thanos and Lady Death were a couple, the
Yes.
power couple.
Power
So-
couple.
And that was kind of a fun little nod, but then like you just get like the incremental build up after each film, after every so many films, where it made sense for him to like kind of show up.
Were they trying to do that with this movie, though?
I think, well, here's the thing.
I think they were trying to do that with the Loki series.
They did that a little bit with the Loki series, and then you get another instance here, but then they give you 3 variants that you've never really seen before, right?
Right.
So you have nothing to really build them up, just that they're different and that there's always more.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my pet peeve of where this whole next phase is going. This whole multiverse, like, is Kang going to be this guy or this guy, the Pharaoh, or whatever? So this whole aspect of multiple variants of the same dude is going to confuse and piss off a lot of people. And if you're, like the fanboy type Marvel fan, you're just going to basically be completely confused and you're just going to be there and enjoy the ride. Whereas, the true Marvel fans, the people that have read the comics and all that jazz, are basically trying to figure out where this next phase is going. And I think that is really pissing off those type of people. And I'm one of them. I'm like, all right, where are we going with this? Because I honestly have no idea anymore.
Well, I would argue that's the cinematic appeal. It's like, if you know how the movie's going to end, would you go to it?
Yeah, I would. Because I want to see how it's done. But, like, I'm trying to figure out, all right, where is all this going? We got Spider-Man, we got Doctor Strange, we got I almost said Wakanda, WandaVision, and all this
That have kind
for
of
this
fiddled
next-
with it.
right. And then the Fantastic Four, where are we going? Are we gonna basically establish one universe and just ride that until the very end, or are we gonna include multiverses into this very end product? I don't know. It's very confusing for me, and I want to know where this is going. And obviously, we're gonna find out at the end here in a couple of years, more than a couple of years.
Yeah, I
But,
definitely fall more in the camp of I'm here for the ride. Like, I never really read any of the comic books, so I can't speak to the substance of beneath the surface
yeah.
of it all. But I'm just more here for the ride. Like, I'm not. It doesn't take much for me to really enjoy these movies. But I would agree with you all. I had a lot of respect and a lot of fun watching them build up Thanos, and they could have done the exact same thing with Kang. They missed some opportunities in other movies and even series to kind of help build him up more. And
Right.
It probably would have helped me enjoy this movie Antman Quantumania even more. So I think it was a missed opportunity. I don't want to say it was bad. I think it was just a missed opportunity from there. And
I think this film should have had M.O.D.O.K be its central villain.
yeah, I would agree with that. And maybe
I
have
think that
Kang
would've-
kind of thrown in a little bit. And
Yeah, like have him like show up being like, oh hey, like M.O.D.O.K is just like a lackey to Kang. Sure, you can have that like get established, but
Because
then
I go back to my earlier point. It's like they try to develop Kang in this movie, but then at the end he
like they
loses
just
to
he just
Ant-Man.
dies, right?
So it was like, what's the point of this?
So
Who is probably the weaker of the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
strength wise, like he's only beat by Thor and the Hulk, but that's only because of proportion,
Right.
and how the suit works.
So going back to the post-credit scenes, I know Colin, you already kind of talked about it a little bit. What's your initial thoughts? It sounds like you're a little confused on where maybe they're going with it, but it doesn't excite you at all.
No, it does excite me, but at the same time, I'm anxious. I want to know where we're going. I kind of was able to piece things together, with the previous phases of everything that led up to Endgame. I could piece together things here and there, but this is the beginning of this next phase, I guess, technically, and so yeah, I'm basically just anxious how we're gonna get to this end point.
I really like the first season of Loki, so I'm super
I
excited
think
to
I
see
am personally
season 2.
more hyped for season 2 of Loki, seeing as we do get to see them interact at like the post scene.
Mhm. And I think it's going to be the perfect opportunity for Marvel to build up the Kang variants a little bit more. Although I think that is one kind of, from what I've heard from other people's pet peeve, is focusing on the Disney Plus series a little bit too much to build up characters, because not everyone necessarily watches those. I mean, I know we do, but so I think there's some confusion there, like maybe why there's some negativity about these movies, because
Like,
they're
is it
throwing
the
aspects in.
cinematic universe if it's not on cinema?
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's some truth to that statement as well.
I gotcha.
That's a valid point. I agree with that.
Sure thing. Okay, I think that's a pretty good summary of our particular view and
Is he,
our various nitpicks.
Is Paul Rudd? I mean, is that the last Ant-Man movie? Do you guys know?
As
Is Paul Rudd
far as
contracted to do
we've
more?
seen, I think that's probably going to be the last Ant-Man film. I don't believe they have announced anything else outside of like an Avengers film that the character would be in. Maybe in the next phase. Hard to really say.
So one note that I made on my phone here. So there's 19 million variants of Kang. I think I mentioned that earlier.
Correct.
I'm really, really curious about those 3 variants that we were introduced to. And that's all I want to say about that. I'm really curious. That's kind of my last thing that I want to say.
All right. Your last little thing. Jake, any closing comments while we wrap this up here?
No, I thought it was a good movie. It was fun to watch, visually very, very appealing. I'm a big Paul Rudd fan. I think he brought amazing comedic aspects to it all. Obviously, I didn't care too much with how they portrayed Kang in the end, but for the most part, as I mentioned, I'd give it a good 7 rating. I plan on probably watching it again, and I'm especially excited for the Loki season 2.
There's actually one last thing that I wanted to say, Kenny, before we close out.
Sure thing. Go ahead.
The title of the movie, I think, is very deceiving. What I mean by that is it's Ant-Man and the Wasp, yet the entire film is centered around Janet and her storyline, if you will, of what she did during those 30-some odd years, 32 years, and how she basically adapted into the quantum realm and her storyline along with Kang. So she's technically not the Wasp anymore. So
Yes.
with the technical Wasp being Hope, she had minimal interaction
With the storyline.
with the storyline whatsoever. So I feel like it should just be Ant-Man Quantumania, not Ant-Man and the Wasp, because she didn't do shit of Jack
I agree
in the
with you.
film.
She was more supporting.
But if
role.
we're gonna call it the Wasp, then maybe Hope should be freaking dead, and Janet come back as the Wasp. And that was also another thing. I was expecting a character to die in this film.
I think I was too. Like maybe Hank dies.
Jeez,
maybe-
they're gonna kill somebody off in Guardians of the Galaxy, man.
Why
Those
not
are-
kill off a character? Why not?
Yeah. At the very end, I could have swore they were gonna kill off Paul Rudd.
No, I could have seen like him being
No.
stuck down there again, because when that portal opened or whatever, and he is fighting
Like
with
he just
Kang,
gets left behind.
like he is gonna freaking like dismantle the portal or whatever, and he's stuck down there with Kang, or Kang gets defeated and he's just stuck down there again. And then it could segue into another Ant-Man and the Wasp
Sure.
kind of movie, but that clearly didn't happen. But no, I was actually kind of, the title overall is very deceiving, and I don't think it should be Ant-Man and the Wasp. It should just be Ant-Man Quantumania.
Oh, I forgot I was gonna bring up one thing. We were watching, for everyone who's listening, we're watching the trailer play over and over on Kenny's screen here, and they just showed Kang's like ship, with the different rings floating around it.
Yeah.
10
Do you
rings.
guys believe, is that tied to how you pronounce it? Shang-Chi guy? Whatever.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
Is that all tied together, you think?
Yes.
I know that was kind of one.
It might be, but I think that was
It
just an
is.
aesthetic.
It's more correlated with Doctor Strange and that little beacon and the most
And the Darkhold or whatever. Or no.
no, Doctor Strange World of whatever that most recent Doctor
Multiverse
Strange.
of Madness.
Thank you. My God, that took a minute. I feel like those two films are correlated more so than what you were saying.
Fair enough.
But I guess we'll see.
We shall see. It is just the beginning of the phase, so maybe they'll give Kang a little bit more love.
But the 10 Rings, since we're talking about that real quick, the 10 Rings is actually the name of the group in Iron Man 3 with the, what's his name?
The Mandarin.
The Mandarin. The
Yeah.
Mandarin. So technically the 10
That's
Rings, there's a correlation there. But anyway, I'll let us wrap up.
Yes.
Kenny, take us out. Hey, guys, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube at Dirty City Fandom. Check us out. And I hope everybody has a pleasant evening.
Yeah. So thank you everybody to listening to the Derby City Fandom podcast. I'm working behind the scene here to try to get a Discord set up so that we can get some more interaction with people. More word on that later on our social media platforms. Other than that, everybody have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Deuces.